All right, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and comment. You came to this video because you saw the title, and I'm seeing more and more of the real estate gurus on YouTube and TikTok posting a lot of comment on the MLS and large brokers like Home Services of America and Keller Williams being sued by homeowners and home purchasers, people that bought homes and sold homes. They're being sued because there is an allegation that these corporations conspired to artificially set commissions high, right? And so I want to jump into here and I want to give my 2 cents. Again, this is my opinion, but I want to see how this is going to reflect on the next 24 to 48 months in our industry, because I am getting so many agents asking me for my opinion. Yes, I am. I actually had several reach out to me yesterday. I actually reached out to my coaches, people that I look up to see what they're hearing. And because there's so much information going out on this, I think there is a prevailing atmosphere where agents are afraid. And let me start off the video right now by saying you don't need to be afraid. Not that you don't need to be concerned, but I don't physically see real estate that has been done for over 100 years changing overnight in this country. I think there are going to be some changes, good or bad, and we'll talk about those as we go through here. But for those of you that are new to the game or you've been following this, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on. So as far as this suit is concerned, a quick Google search. This case has been winding through federal courts since 2019. Guys, we're in 2023. So this has been going on for a while. When a group of home sellers, I said earlier buyers, I was misunderstood, please forgive me. It's sellers that are alleging in a lawsuit that the National Association of Realtors, NAR, the corporation that we all pay yearly to, along with real estate firms like Keller Williams and Home Services of America, conspired. Now let's focus in a second on that word conspired to keep commissions artificially high. Before I jump to the next screen, guys, that word conspired can be emotionally construed to have some deep, dark underpinnings of criminality, right? Oh my God, the owners of these brokers and NARs, when they got together to play their monthly poker game and have their cigars and their whiskey, they conspired. Hey, that's the allegation. And so this thing has been winding through, and there again is this, I believe, false conception out there that these brokers have really put the screws down on homeowners. Now, that's not to say that in a shifting market, brokers cannot adjust commission rates or things like that. That's a whole different ballgame. What they're saying, though, is that there was this deep conspiracy, right? And so let's look at what just happened yesterday, guys. This was the bombshell, and most of you have been following this on TikTok. God, I can't open up TikTok without this thing, like every other video from a realtor giving the story, right? So I figured, let's go ahead and, in the words of my favorite, one of my favorite trilogies, let's bring some balance to the force. Now, a federal jury has issued a verdict against the National NAR and major real estate franchisors like Keller Williams in an antitrust case that alleges some of the nation's largest real estate companies conspired to inflate. Now, if you're not familiar with antitrust, think about in the late 1800s going into the 1900s, where large corporations, big oil, if you will, literally controlled the entire economic purse strings of the energy sector in this country. There was one major player, and they basically made it absolutely unfair for competitors via regulations, the money that they spent to get government favor. I mean, it was terrible. And so the United States had to actually bring antitrust lawsuits and break up these large corporations, right? Back in the late 1800s, 1900s, these corporations were so large that nobody could play, and it was inflating prices at their whim. That's that word antitrust, because that's where the government comes in and breaks up the large monopolies and tries to level the playing field. Unfortunately, you don't have one major player, and this is why I don't like that word antitrust, because there's not one major player. Yet NAR, which we all buy into, but as far as the actual brokers who decide what commission rates their agents are going to charge or what they tell their agents, there's hundreds of these brokers. So there's, Even though Keller Williams is large, eXp Realty is large, there's not one that can be said to be the predominant broker in the United States. So I don't like that word antitrust, but again, this is how they are framing the case. And then they use the word conspired. Again, back to my earlier connotation, it brings these visions of these CEOs conspiring with NAR, over their rum and their gin and their whiskey with the cigars, playing poker. Hey, let's put it. That's kind of that word conspired, and I don't see that happening. But let's put that in context to 2023. The economy is in the toilet. Interest rates are high. There, for the last couple of years, from COVID on, there has just been this mental mind shift in America where people are looking at scapegoats to ease their pain. Like, who can we blame to make all of this happen? And I think, unfortunately, real estate got caught into that. And this case started off and it grew legs, multiple legs, until it's now just an abnormal beast. And it's really spurred some emotional arguments, not based on core logic or fact, but really kind of where we feel we are. And that's where you get into some danger zones with jury trials. I'll give you 2 examples. And again, don't comment below. This is not political, right? I'm just going to yield 2 examples and you do what you want with it. I think about the OJ trial back in the 80s, late 80s. I think about that trial where the jury acquitted OJ with the mountain of evidence and he walked free, right? That jury, I think, was biased. That's my personal opinion. Now, if you don't, I don't want you to argue with me. This is not meant for us to have. I'm telling you, based on that, the jury got that wrong. And so when juries get very emotional, for whatever reason, racial, political, maybe they identified with the economic impact and they decided to award not based on fact but emotion, that's dangerous. I think that's kind of very similar, in my opinion, to what we have going on now. I'd love to hear your comments. Drop some comments below and tell me what you think. Now, the other thing is, I'm thinking here in the last 24 months, let's look at some of the cases brought against the former president, Donald Trump. This man is getting lawsuit after lawsuit filed against him by prosecutors who are, and let's just be honest, of one political party. And so you can make arguments that the emotions and the politics are getting in the way of sound judicial prudence. I think about the case in New York where Donald Trump was being sued by the state for RICO charges, and they're using his valuations of Mar-a-Lago as an example of him hyperinflating to get favor from the banks. When in reality, if you look at the case, the judge viewed Mar-a-Lago as an $18 million asset valuation. And if you guys are adept at valuations, you know that is completely off the case. That's emotional. And I think it's politically motivated. Now, there's no jury trial in that case, but had there been, and this would be allowed to go to jury, you would see a lot of emotional arguments brought to bear. Now, like Trump, hate Trump, whatever, this man is being hammered left and right. And I think you could make the case for political gerrymandering, right? So there's another example of how potential jurors can possibly get it wrong. Now, we haven't seen the conclusion of those cases, so I can't really say, but looking at some of the things that he's being charged with, you can then relate that to, and I'm just going to draw the line to the commission debate. It's not being built, the cases are not being built on sound logic. It's being built on the economic circumstances and the impact of really crappy couple years of what's happened to homeowners in the real estate market. So I digress. Let's move on. This suit represents about 500,000 Missouri home sellers. So guys, we're just in Missouri. There's 49 other states to go. And this thing, once it's done, can literally create some massive monsters that we're going to have to deal with in the real estate field. Now, the jurors only deliberated for about 2 hours, which tells me that either one, this case was so slammed shut, like they actually proved conspiracy and antitrust, or there's emotional context to this that may be not based on factual contextualization, but emotions. And I think I'm going to lean more on that, in my humble opinion. Again, this is my opinion. You do what you want with it. What do you guys think? Drop a comment below. Do you think this was emotional, or do you think it was built and based on sound advice, sound technicality? So let's continue. The jury awarded in about 2 hours $1.8 billion in damages, which under the law will automatically be trebled out to $5.356 billion. They deliberated again for about 2.5 hours, which is really not that long. That tells me that emotionally they already had their minds made up. I need to look at the facts that were brought out, which we haven't really got 100% of that, but basically we need to see this entire thing, I feel, in my opinion. Now, the jurors are asked to find whether home seller plaintiffs in the class action proved by a preponderance of the evidence that a conspiracy. They're in the back office once a month with their cigars and their whiskey, and they're conspiring to put it to these Missouri homeowners, right? You have to really visualize, like, is Gary Keller and the executive board of NAR really conspiring to put it to? And if you know Gary Keller, that's not really his DNA if you followed him for years, right? I mean, he is a businessman, but conspiracy, this one's to me a leap. Now, the preponderance of evidence that a conspiracy existed to follow and enforce a NAR policy known as a cooperative compensation rule. So basically, guys, if you're new to this, what they're saying is when you, the listing agent, go in and charge a 6% commission, and you rightfully write on the listing agreement that 3% goes to the buyer's agent, you're charging, as the broker's agent, the seller's agent, you're charging the seller 6%. And you're informing the seller that your broker then will give 3%, although the broker's not doing it, the title company is. But because the seller is by default paying the broker 6%, he's awarding 3% to the buyer's agent to bring a ready, willing, and able buyer. So they're saying that 6% was conspiracy, was to inflate that to 6% or whatever, and it was a conspiracy, and it was on purpose, and it was meant to defraud Missourians, right? This case specifically centered on whether there was a conspiracy. And the jury said, yes, in 2.5 hours, yes, there was a conspiracy. These dadgum real estate brokers have screwed us out of billions of dollars in commissions. We think we should have just been able to put our home on. This is me being a little crass right now, but the concept is they somehow think that the homeowners should have just put maybe a for sale by owner sign out in the yard, or put it in the Craigslist or the Facebook, and they're just going to have buyers coming in, and then these buyers won't be represented because in their minds they're not, why should I pay these buyers agents? So without the concept of what's involved, like who's going to write the contract, who's going to vet the contract, who's going to be in the buyer's best interest, who's going to be in the seller's best interest to look at these contracts, right? None of that was taken into consideration. It founded itself on the principle of they conspired to make a lot of money off of us, right? This is going to, in some degree, I believe, change where we're at. Now, the plaintiff's lead counsel said it's been a long 4.5-year fight to prove conspiracy, that paying a commission that the seller agreed to on the contract was something that was thrusted upon them conspiratorially without their understanding of the ramifications, right? I love how this stuff is written. The National Association of Realtors and Corporate Real Estate Defendants have been found liable for a conspiracy to rip homeowners off. Now, the last time I checked, when I have a seller signing a listing agreement and I specifically point out how much commission we're charging, and I also show how much we are going to pay the buyer's agent, that is not intentionally ripping them off. Otherwise, why would they sign it? The home seller doesn't have to sign it. But again, these are the nuances of this case. So anyway, let's now just lay a foundation of where I think we're at. I think at some point this will affect us to a degree in the next 24 to 48 months. And the real estate industry, the profession, has been rocked since COVID. And now with the political climate, interest rates, inflation, as realtors, we have been just we're getting hammered. I think at last I heard there's 80,000 or more agents in the last 12 months that have left real estate, right? So what I think is going to happen, I think it's going to thin the ranks. I think we're going to see a lot of agents leaving. I still think that agents are going to list a lot of homes and work with a lot of buyers. And if we have to make adjustments, like if we can no longer say that we're going to do this, and then it's going to come down to an agreement between the seller and the listing agent to pay them X amount. And then I think they're going to have solid in place from lawyers agreements where the disclosure to the seller is the seller's broker will pay the buyer's agent instead of, here's what I think is going to happen. It's not going to come from title company anymore. They're going to pay the broker. This is what I think is going to happen. The broker then will pay the buyer's broker. So it's just going to take a little extra time to get paid. And they're going to disclose up front what this money is for. It's for marketing. It's for us getting the right buyers. It's for us being able to allow your home to be shown. I don't think we're going to be getting rid of buyer's agents. I think all they've done is they've rearranged how payment's going to happen. At the end of the day, that's what I think. Because if you fundamentally get rid of buyer's agents, who's going to bring people to your home? Because ask for sell by owners how that's worked. Right? Ask people trying to sell their home on their own without dealing with a listing agent or even a buyer's agent. How's that working for you in this economy? Now, if they decide to go nuclear and totally trash the entire thing, if you think the last 2 years was bad, wait, you ain't seen nothing yet. But I think common minds will prevail. Calm minds will prevail in the next 24 months. Pardon me. This will change what we're doing. But I think it's going to change the definition of how we charge commissions. It's not going to change how we transact business. So I think all this is doing, guys, is it's to some degree showcasing maybe some weaknesses in our industry, but it's not going to change how we get paid. It's just going to change how we structure that. Does that make sense? All right, guys, that's it. Until some more information. I didn't want to do a video every week on this because, God, that would just be 500 videos on my channel. But I wanted to give you my 2 cents. Hope I didn't confuse you. I do think there's going to be some changes. I don't think it's Armageddon for us. And if it is, it would be the entire housing market would literally crash. If they got rid of real estate agents, this thing is over with. Game, set, and match, and they know it. This is another case, in my humble opinion, that was wrong to begin with. And there's no way that you can prove that there was conspiracy from people like Gary Keller and NAR in some back room. I think it was an emotional 2.5-hour decision based on fact that was emotion-based. And at the end of the day, this is not going to stop. We're going to be dealing with this for a couple of years. And at the end of all of this, I think, in my humble opinion, the only thing that changes is the way that people are paid. We're still going to get paid. Otherwise, everything's done, right? All right, drop comments below. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your opinions. And until I see you guys on the next video, be safe, continue listing homes, buyer's agents, continue showing those homes, and make yourself a very fine living in our industry. Go Realtors.